Welcome back. We are Gentlemen United, and you are in the Man Cave. In the show tonight, I'll be talking to Darlene Monsour about the Dakota Access Pipeline. In 2016, the Energy Transfer Partners clashed with the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe on Turtle Mound over the development of a $3.8 billion, 1,180-mile-long oil pipeline designed to transport up to 470,000 barrels a day, running from Bakken and Three Forks, North Dakota through Patoka, Illinois, and later to Nederland, Texas. The corporation is actually based in Canada with a subcorp in Dallas, Texas. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, they are targeting year-end to be at 75% capacity, which is about 352,500 barrels per day. The primary concern was the impact that oil spills would have on drinking water that the local communities rely on. As always, for those watching this broadcast live on YouTube, feel free to add your comments and questions in the comment bar. I will watch for them throughout the show and will incorporate them into the show, time permitting. Joining us tonight is Darlene Monsour and, of course, you, our viewers. I'm Sean Best. I'm your host and moderator. Hey, Darlene, how you doing?
I'm just fine. How are you, Sean?
I'm doing great. Darlene, I'm going to just get right into it. There's a lot of questions here. I'm sure you can fill in a lot of the blanks for us, but is there anything specifically that you'd like to sort of start off with in terms of setting the context, or should I just get into the questions?
I'll put in that there are several pipelines still yet to be made, some in process. Sable, down in Florida, the Seminole Reservation is dealing with the same thing as we did at Standing Rock. We have some at the Great Lakes going in and others that are proposed, ready to go in. The whole grid concept, if you look at it, actually looks like that, which is a vein, several veins. And if you look at the grid concept of all the pipelines, that's horrible, because that would be like our veins being totally clogged with something, and they would be clogged with oil. As we all know, these pipelines leak. And what is our main source of earth? Is water. What could we not live without? We can live without a lot of things. One thing we cannot live without is what?
Is water, exactly.
Okay, that's my intro.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Darlene, first tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved with the Standing Rock Sioux Reservation and the protests of the Dakota Access Pipeline.
First off, I'm three-part Native. I spent, me and my brother, a whole summer on a reservation in Arizona where we were given all the ceremonies. I even have a Native name. But I've always been Native in my heart, although I was not raised on a reservation. I also have visited reservations of the Seminole Natives over in Florida. And this touches me to the core because these are my peoples. When I kept seeing, it would come across on my wall, when I kept seeing reports of what's happening, I immediately went and started a team.
Okay. Excellent. Well, so now tell us a bit about who are the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe and where is their ancestral land located? I know we have our geopolitical lines where all the states are divided, but if you can give us sort of a rough idea of what land the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe inhabit.
This is over in North Dakota, Cannonball. And they have a lot of, reservations, so forth, but privately owned land by certain people over there. They had their burial grounds desecrated, but it's the Lakota Sioux. But they consider themselves as Lakota.
Okay, so are there different types of Sioux? So you said there were Lakota Sioux. Are there different types of Sioux?
Yes, there is. There's the New York Sioux, which is the Punxsutawney or something like that Sioux. If you look way back at the territorial reigns of everything, it would show you the territory of each native tribe. And each one has a a different denotation to their type by location.
Gotcha. Okay. I know you and I've had several conversations offline about this, and I'd mentioned to you beforehand, I think you and my children have a very common ancestry. My kids are part Blackfoot, and as for those who don't know what part of North America that represents, and you can keep me honest here, that would be sort of the Montana, the northwestern part of the United States and Canada. So I believe it would be Alberta, Saskatchewan, Montana. What's east of Montana? I can't.
Dakota.
The Dakotas.
Dakota.
So the Blackfoot have a very large footprint in that part of North America. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, but speaking of footprints, that's how they got their name. They're because of the mountains being so dark and rich, the soil, their feet would be stained black, so they named them the Blackfeets. So that's originally where they got their name from.
Well, there you go. So I didn't intentionally segue that way, but I'm glad that you picked up on that and ran with it. So let's get back to the topic. So what is the issue with DAPL, which is Dakota Access Pipeline? Why are the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe protesting it? Won't it create jobs for them and thousands of other Americans?
First off, it is their land. It was their main waterway, their way of life, the way of cooking, drinking, washing clothes, also the revenue of fishing and to eat. And they knew with all the pipelines that had leaked, they did not want to give up their land. There was not even an easement granted by the Corps of Engineers. ETP was running up against a deadline of January 1st to have completion, and they fell by default because of the protesting. But it really wasn't so much protesting, it was water protecting.
Gotcha. So let me see if I understand how the dots connect here. So ETP is a privately owned organization, but somehow they had enlisted the support of the Army Corps of Engineers, which is a subset of the U.S. military. Is that a fair statement?
They never did grant the easement. What happened is other countries, they went to other countries and they helped support them because they put out the information for vital support, and a lot of it was through banking systems and such like that. A lot of the banks closing out and pulling funds because it was getting close to the deadline. However, President Trump came in and signed the orders to continue it, and of course the Keystone XL, which is over in Alaska.
What was the reaction of the Standing Rock Sioux Nation when former President Barack Obama signed an order to delay construction, followed by the current President Donald Trump's executive order to restart the project? Did they feel that President Obama kicked the can down the road to avoid dealing with it, leaving it to the new administration to deal with?
All they were was grateful. At the time, they actually held celebrations. They don't hold anything against anyone. Natives are not like that. They're not a hateful type of, persons, even though still to this day people look at them as savages. They're really great people. They care about the earth. They care about spirituality. They care about everyone. But they care most about Mother Earth. They care about what they need to survive. They don't get into the highfalutin, Wall Streets and stuff like that kind of thing. They're very down to earth. They care about the land. They care about each other. And it was just beautiful how everything came together there for a while for them.
Okay.
The only problem was once the papers were signed, then eviction was served. Everybody had to leave.
And I'm getting to that point in just a second, so just bear with me. So, and I'm going to jump forward to more current events, and then I'll go backwards to the eviction component. So, as recently as a month ago, a judge ruled that the ETP broke the law. What's happened since then?
There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of different talk back and forth of lawsuits and so forth of those who did wrong. but we haven't seen anything as a closure yet on it. So it's still up in the air.
Okay. All right. Now, here's one thing I think that everyone who is even remotely aware of the Dakota Access Pipeline issue can recall, and that is how the protesters were treated. So the treatment of the protesters was demeaning. It was insulting. It was televised worldwide, mainly by the assistance of social media outlets and groups like the Young Turks, as the major media outlets, as far as I could tell, gave it passing attention at best. Now, the ETB, their private security firm, Morton County Police and riot gear, and even the National Guard used water cannons, attack dogs, and tear gas on the water protectors in the dead of winter in North Dakota. Are there still members of the water protectors broadcasting the latest events around DAPL? Have there been spills that you know of?
There was a spill very close to the area, a couple of them, and yes, we still get live broadcasts, but they cannot be right there where the pipelines are. They could be at other sectors, but they cannot go on that property because it's now deemed private property. It was detrimental because the live feeds actually showed us what was going on. There were also rubber bullets used too. Not just
right. I recall that too. I'm sorry I missed that part. So let me understand this part. You mentioned that where that situation took place is private property. Now, was it private property beforehand? And if it was not, what happened to change it from being not being private property to being private property?
From what we understand, there was a lot of the underhanded exchange on lands and was sold to other countries.
Okay. Now, did the Lakota Sioux, did they own that land, or was it owned by somebody else, but they had some sort of arrangement where
there is a Lakota person that actually owns Standing Rock reservation areas, their own private property. That was not interrupted per se, but Turtle Island and all the areas there of the Lakota Sioux, that's what was taken over. There was some sort of a bidding going on, and they were sold without knowledge to anyone. Now, that's still not written in stone of where it went to, but this is a fact.
Okay, and that's what I found a little bit interesting, because I was thinking, okay, well, how did they go about acquiring this land and suddenly building a pipeline through it if they didn't have some sort of arrangement with somebody, that person being unknown at this point, to be allowed to bring their equipment onto the property and to dig and to do all the stuff that they have to do to lay a pipeline? So I was wondering exactly how. I was not clear on how that came together, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, you're talking money. We even had petitions going, all kinds of them, to try to help. And the information got out pretty widespread. That's how the concerts were held out there, to benefit them, to help them. However, there was an elder, I will not name, who was playing both sides.
So that's kind of what I was getting at. I was getting at, so there were some dots I personally couldn't connect. And I'm thinking, okay, somebody had to have been, let's say, not been playing in a very forthright manner in this scenario for that to have been able to occur, right?
Lack of integrity.
There you go, absence of integrity, right? So you and I were talking a moment ago about the fact that, so there's the Lakota Sioux Nation, who were representing the water protectors, so they were the resistance. Were there other tribes that joined, and there was something like they said 13 or 15,000 people showed up. I imagine there were other tribes that
wasn't
that
just
combined
people,
forces.
that was tribes. We had them coming from all over. It was beautiful. I mean, it was just, it would warm your heart, you know, that just so.
So now, where did they come from in terms that we would understand? So were they from North Dakota, South Dakota,
Hawaii, Alaska, even other countries, all over. They all came together.
So other countries, there are American.
We have indigenous in every country there is.
Wow. So what other countries, just off the top of your head, can you think of that you got that support came from?
We had I think it was Australia. We also had Netherlands. All kinds of people
Wow.
coming out there. I mean, tribes as well. But we videos of all the tribes. They came with their flags, their totems, and everything.
Wow. So that must, and that was that sort of the first time that you'd ever seen all those tribes together in one place, or is that something you've seen
Yes.
before?
Not since before the treaties came in, and then we had the Oklahoma movement, and I was not even born yet, but believe me, I know plenty about it because we're still trying to find my great-great-grandmother who died on the Trail of Tears. But there's never been converging per se such as that, except for whenever they were moving all of them off their territories. And it wasn't under good circumstances. This was actually a good thing. Everybody came together,
Right.
to help.
And I
for
imagine,
support.
that social media obviously was a big factor in bringing, taking very globally dispersed tribes and bring them physically together into to provide
It made the
resistance.
awareness global.
Right, right. So now, just I guess a little bit of history. I understand that one of the more well-known Lakota Indians was known as Sitting Bull. Is that correct?
Well, he wasn't just Lakota. He had a blend because he's my great-great-grandfather. And I'm not Lakota.
Sitting Bull is your great-great-grandfather?
Great-great or great-great-great.
Wow. So you could probably spend the next hour talking about him alone. I know he's one of the more, I guess, one of the most well-known of any of the Indian tribes, given the history of the treaties that the American government made just shortly after I think it was a Civil War, and they then continued to encroach upon those treaties when they discovered that the land that they were not taking or not trying to negotiate for, they discovered there's gold inside it. Okay, well, you know what? Now we want some of that land. So I imagine you're familiar with the story and what led up to all that.
Yes, and it's always been for minerals as well. It's not just land seizures.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody's thinking that far ahead. They're just thinking about, how can I line my pockets and get that little get the house in the Caribbean for my retirement. They're not particularly thinking about, your grandchildren, my grandchildren.
How are they going to make it whenever there's nothing, though?
Right. Yeah. I understand that the biggest concern was oil leaking into the drinking water. During the course of the development, ETP announced that they'd had 3 leaks that were quickly contained. That's what they say. Is this number accurate, and has the water already been rendered undrinkable?
Actually, the number was higher than that, and majority has been considered undrinkable. Look at Flint, Michigan. It's been like that. And a lot of that was from that fact. And there's still nothing done. I actually sent out an alert to Erin Brockovich. I mean,
from the Aaron Brockovich movie. So is she still around? And what was your intention of getting a hold of her? What did you want her to do?
Because she still does things for our environment. The only problem is we got EPA out there too. So, then there was National Guard, all kinds of problems that they ran into. It wasn't It was horrible. I mean, these people, it's 0 degrees or what have you. They're out there and they're holding just a vigil, you know, and prayers, and they're being attacked with, water. They're spraying water on them to freeze them out, along with tear gas, rubber bullets, and the cannons. It was horrible.
It was horrible. I recall seeing one clip where there was an elderly lady who was sitting in a wheelchair, so she couldn't get up or move out of the way. And if I recall correctly, they sprayed her with water in the dead of winter. And any Canadians know what winter is like. So we know North Dakota, they get winters that Canadians are very familiar with. It's not like it was chilly outside, or it was 52 degrees or 48 degrees. It is below freezing, in which for Canadians is below zero. It's below freezing. That water hits you, and you can go into hypothermia pretty quickly. You can get
Yes.
Frostbite. All that gets exacerbated if you're actually wet.
And if you become wet, right, that increases the factors. Luckily, they had, some fires going, and insulations. A lot of them were taken to vehicles. But in one of those instances, I don't know if it was the same one or two separate ones, two females. One, she was shot with a rubber bullet in the face. She may lose her eye. We had another one, 18 years old, from New York. She came out just to help water protectors. She was a sweetheart, and she was shot in the arm, and she may lose that arm.
Oh, so obviously that shot would have to have been from fairly close range for it to have created that kind of damage from a rubber bullet. Well, I guess if you think about the cold, that rubber bullet is a lot harder in cold weather.
Exactly.
Right.
And velocity of speed too. Don't forget that.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Because they were wearing insulated. Well, the one lady, of course, her face is not covered, but the one with the arm, she had insulation on. I mean, the insulated clothing, and it ripped through it.
Oh. So now, from my recollection, being from Canada, many years ago, there was a resistance effort from the Kanasatake Mohawk Nation, which would be in the Quebec, Ontario region. I guess that would be New York State, the other side of the border. And I recall, I think that was during the referendum. Quebec was is a province, or what Americans would consider a state, that wanted to separate, like Texas has claimed to want to do on a number of occasions. And to secede, right, secession, right. And the Mohawk Nation wanted to have their own piece of land. They said, okay, if you're going to separate, that's fine, but we're going to have our own piece of land, so you guys can draw your geopolitical lines around your piece of property, but this piece of property belongs to us. And it kind of crossed over the Canadian-U.S. border. And I don't know that a lot of Canadians were aware that a lot of the Mohawk Nation at that time were also war veterans. They were trained military soldiers. Was that the state? Were there also? Did you find a lot of that also with the Standing Rock Sioux Nation? And was there any?
Actually, I put out a call to send boots on the ground of veterans due to whenever they were having to leave. I wanted to make sure everybody was okay, and as usual, we had people show up, Call of Duty. But you were going about the Mohawks. Well, you had code talkers, wind talkers, Navajo, Cherokee, Apache. There was all kinds of them that were groomed into warfare. And they still have not cracked that code. So, I mean, we have helped in so many ways, but yet, well, not me in particular, but my peoples. And they're still treated like they're the drudge of the earth.
But so I guess my question here is that was there any, I don't want to say violence, but was there any physical conflict other than what we saw on TV, which was basically just the protesters sort of standing there and trying to stand their ground, and rubber bullets, tear gas, the whole bit. Were there any scuffles? Was there any were there any
Several.
firearms?
Yes, there was 3 gentlemen showed up with M16s, I think it was, something along those lines. And they were in the water, and they were shooting at water protectors. Now, when the very first part of this, the private security firm came out, they used dogs. Those dogs bit several water protectors. So this was ongoing. I mean, and then towards the end, as they were telling them to leave Morton County, as coming towards them, and one man, he was trying to just talk to him, and they threw him on the ground and broke his hip.
Did anybody reach out to the governor of the state of North Dakota or to any representative to say, hey, guys, look what's happening here. We're taxpayers. We're Americans. We were here before all of you were here. They're breaking the laws here. They're shooting us with rubber bullets. What are you going to do about this? Did anybody reach out? And if they did, what happened?
We sent out information to the governor, the senator. We sent them out to the White House, just anywhere that we felt that someone would step in and take charge. Now, Obama, that's whenever I think he decided, oh, I'm going to decline this for now. It's not right. At least he took the initiative for that, and that I thank him for. It just, I mean, he was about on his way out. He didn't have to do that, but he did. We went every venue we could think of. We even had medics that went out there to help. After a while, though, after the concerts, so forth like that, they started literally blocking off where people could not come in. If they did, they were interviewed, they were checked with ID, blah, blah, blah. What are they coming there for? If they said medic, they had to let them through.
Really? So, because now it's private land, it's privately owned.
It's pretty much, yeah, even though it wasn't.
Interesting.
Not legally.
Right. So that was back in January, February, the dead of winter. And so we're now in July. Yesterday was the 4th of July. What's happening with the protesters now? Like, where are they? I know that the eviction happened in February. Basically, they got evicted off of that now privately owned land. And I understand that as of the 1st of June, the pipeline is now running. It's actually supplying oil in small amounts. What happened to the protesters? Where did they go?
Well, wherever their homes were, they weren't exactly, like I say, they were water protectors more than they were protesters. Of course, we also had groups where there was ride shares to get them out there, but we also had groups that would help bring them out of there too. We tried to keep this as safe for them as we possibly could. A bunch of us got together on it. It was heart-wrenching, though, the results. We still have activity of some camps nearby that are still trying to help as much as they can, because it got to the point to where Bismarck or any of your stores or anything like that would not sell anything to anyone that was out there at camp.
So it sounds to me like what you're saying is there was collusion even with the local general stores that would typically supply outdoor gear. If they knew that you were a water protector or were an empathizer of a water protector, they would outright refuse to sell products to you. Is that what you're saying?
Right. And online, several of us were attacked. Me included.
Attacked in which way? So you're saying
verbally.
basically...
Verbally.
Okay. So are we talking about doxing? Are we talking about, or was it sort of... Okay,
it was
so it was the... Typical online cyberbullying, basically.
Basically, yes. No doxing, though. No, nothing of that
Okay.
nature. Um,
Okay.
they were very heavy. They would come into groups that I was in and start downgrading me like I was part of the savages, which that don't bother me. What bothered me was they're just as bad, excuse my language, as the feminists with their cognitive dissonance. They have one side and one side only. They kept blaming everybody else, the natives. I'm like, really? Okay, so you're telling me if somebody come on your land and they wanted to take it, that you're just going to sit there and not do anything? What gets to me is how people can stand by and actually feel that they're righteous or did, their way is the only way you can see it. It's not the way it is. It's not reality.
When that was all going on, there were people in uproar who weren't even involved in the movement because they heard about it through social media. It was on, I guess, Twitter or YouTube or and so a lot of people cared at that point in time. And now, of course, we all have short attention spans. The sound bites have stopped, and now we're on to something else. And I guess my question to you is, has support for the water protectors been consistent, or has it waned? I mean, from what I can tell, it seems like it's waned. What is your feeling? What's on the feet on the ground?
It's not as widespread right now. We still have several entities that have formulated since then, and they actually are getting laws passed to protect. We got one in New York shut down because not we, but they did. So a lot of positive has come out of this, but a lot of negative, and it's very, very disheartening. It really is. I've gone through emotional up and downs over it because it's just it's our future. What are we going to have for our children? That was the whole idea behind it. Our future generations.
I think when people begin to realize it's a problem is when it's already going to be too late to do anything about it. What's happened with the Trump administration since February? Have they done anything more? Like, what have they been doing now? What have they been doing in that time from February until now?
He's been signing a lot of, passing new bills, so forth like that, executive orders. And I'm not sure if he felt that he had to sign over for the pipelines or what. I'm not our president, and I do not want to speak bad of anybody in charge of our country. My point is, if you're in that situation, is there an alternative that you could go to? That's all. Other than that, I don't try to buck anybody or downgrade them. That's not going to help anything. All it's going to do is create more controversy, and we've dealt with enough of that. The better thing is to help each other heal. That's where we're at right now.
And so on that note, because my next question was leading there, is for anybody who sees this interview, what can they do if they want to support water protectors? What can they do? Where can they go to support water protectors?
We do not have any donations direct to them. Okay. However, there is a page that was made that's actually helping and getting things done that might help. Let me see.
And what you can do is you can forward the link to me after the show, and I'll put it in the low bar for everybody. I guess final questions. Is there something that you'd like to say before we wrap up here? Anything that we missed that you really wanted to talk about that was relative to the Dakota Access Pipeline and, of course, the water protectors?
Many Lakota to my peoples. We're still here for you. If you need to talk to us, we'll listen. For anyone else listening, open your eyes, please, before it's too late.
Okay, Darlene, thanks for joining us tonight. If you enjoyed the show and want to see more, join our public Facebook group called The Man Cave by Gentlemen United. All of our shows, tons of additional content, and invitations to future shows are posted there. You can add to the conversation and suggest future discussion topics that you'd like to see us tackle. Please like, comment, share, and most of all, subscribe by clicking the Gentleman United icon right here. If you want to see more, click here. Thanks again for joining Gentleman United in the Man Cave.
Enjoyed the show? Like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for joining us in the Man Cave.